This is Boomer Time, a proactive podcast for baby boomers, about baby boomers, and for people taking care of baby boomers. If that sounds like you, then you're in the right place. I'm Nancy Kogar, an elder law attorney and aging advocate, and this podcast was made just for you. Remember, though, the things we discuss here are not intended to be legal advice, and no attorney-client relationship is established by this podcast. Welcome to Boomer Time. I'm your host, Nancy Kogar, and I'm glad you're here. It's April, so spring is finally upon us, and so is an often more unpleasant season, tax time. And even though the deadline's past us, it's still lingering for some of us. And it's always a stressful time gathering all those records together for the past year and making those annual filings to the Internal Revenue Service. But today, we're going to tackle an additional stress that's come up when it comes to taxes, and it doesn't have anything to do with filing your own return. Instead, I'm here to tell you that tax returns have become ripe for fraudsters. And I want you to know how these scammers are doing it and how you can protect yourself or respond if it unfortunately happens to you. You know, and I got to share, I'm reporting on this one firsthand because yours truly had it happen to her this year, believe it or not. These scammers are so pervasive and are costing our country billions of dollars. It's so prevalent that the Justice Department started a new initiative because of the increase in fraud when it comes to tax refunds. It's called the Stolen Identity Refund Fraud. So, unfortunately, like I said, I can report personally that it happened to me, and I didn't even know a return had been filed until I got a letter in the mail from the IRS. And I even found that suspicious. So I want to let you know that after I found out, I had to take some very specific action, not only to advise the IRS that it wasn't me that filed the return, but I also, too, had to protect my identity from further fraud. You know, I've talked about scammers before, and for that reason, you might want to go back and listen to my 2-part episode on scams. They are active little dickens, and as I've said, these scammers are super sophisticated, unfortunately. They are coming up with more and more clever ways to obtain our personal information. So like I said, unfortunately, I was burned, and in a minute, I'll tell you more about that. But I want to respond to the attack in this podcast by providing you with resources to avoid becoming a victim of IRS fraud, and also to learn how you can take some additional steps to protect your personal information. So, a few weeks ago now, I learned that I had been the target of a fraudulent tax return scam. How I found out, like I said, was a surprise too. I got a letter in the mail from the IRS asking me if I had filed my returns. You know, honestly, I have to tell you, at first response, I thought the letter was a scam. But turns out it really was the IRS, and someone really had filed a return with my personal information asking for a big refund. And it caught the IRS's attention. That was a surprise too. So when the letter came in, I had to respond to the IRS online to advise them that I had not filed a return yet for 2023, and so what was filed appeared to be fraud. And I'm not the only one. These tax scams are on the rise, and they come in all shapes and sizes. So every year, the IRS publishes what it calls the Dirty Dozen. And it's not a list of people that owe taxes. It's an annual list of the top tax season scams. So the one that I became a victim of is now on that list. But I want to make sure you're aware of these things. There are the fraudulent tax returns that can be filed. There are also robocalls and other phony phone scams. We've talked about those before. As I said, I was surprised to get something in the mail from the IRS, so I had to check it out and make sure that was legitimate. So please know that the IRS will not call you on the phone and threaten you to pay back taxes. That's a big one. Okay? They will not call you personally to ask for your bank account information to provide a refund to you. They don't offer that kind of personalized service. Unfortunately, people fall for it all the time, and it costs them lots of money. These scammers try to threaten you too, and know that the IRS cannot revoke your driver's license, your business license, or your immigration status. If they tell you that, then that's a red alert that you're talking to a bogus scammer. Just hang up. What the IRS will do is mail you a notice that can be checked out by you. And that's what happened to me. So, unfortunately, these robocom and these AI scams are on the rise too. Text or social media scams. The IRS will never respond to you in this manner. Phishing emails, that's where they're trying to solicit a response from you. It's just all over the place, and it is so frustrating. If you listen to my two-part series on scams, they target older adults because more often than not, we're the ones with the assets. And they want them, right? I've said that before. But this kind of scam, identity theft, seeking fraudulent returns, I just wanted to let you know that this is out there. And just imagine filing your return only to find out that it had already been filed. So I thought this was worthy of a podcast because, like I said, I want to empower you with information that can help you to protect yourself and to be aware of these things as they're out there. So I'm going to talk through some of the things that you can do and should do if you find out something like this has happened to you. And also what you can do to prevent it from happening to you. So I'll look forward to talking with you about this. And as I always say, I've got resources available, and we'll talk more about that too. There's a lot of information here, and I'll have that on my website at nancykogar.com. So stick with me, and then you know where to go to get the info that's going to empower you. So I'm going to take a quick break, and then when I come back, we're going to talk about what you can do to respond to this kind of thing. Welcome back to Boomer Time. Today we're talking about tax fraud, far more serious form of tax-related crime, identity theft, where a scammer uses the victim's personal information and social security number to file a return in the victim's name and claim the refund. One particularly painful aspect of identity theft is that the victims often find out only after it occurs. I can attest to that. So, for example, you can't file a return, it gets rejected because one's already been filed. That may be one way you find out. Or, like me, you receive a correspondence in the mail from the IRS asking you if you filed a return, and to let them know if you didn't. You may also get a notice online that an account has been created in your name. These are all ways that the IRS may contact you. And like I said before, they're not going to text you. They're not going to call you. That's not what they do. So when the IRS states that you should always respond to any IRS notice, particularly if you believe it's an error. So don't ignore these things. Check them out, but don't ignore it. And also understand if you've got this form of identity theft that occurs, it may be likely, obviously, that the scammer has your social security number. I'm going to put some links on my website, as I said before, so that you can go right to these links and get the information and the contact information you need. So I'm not going to list these links here on the podcast, but they will be available on my website. So I think that's a better way to get those. But please report that right away, okay? Here's the specific actions that you should take if you've had something like this happen. If you're dealing with a fraudulent tax return, your situation will fall into one or two categories. You'll get the notice in the mail, which means that the IRS has stopped the fraudulent return, and it's all because they've got a computerized program that flags the return, which is good, right? If that's the situation, then they'll ask you to contact them to let them know that the return is fraudulent. And then from there on in, you're going to get a special PIN identification number that you'll need to use in the foreseeable future to identify yourself. Then, guess what? You're going to have to file an old-fashioned paper return. If you didn't get the notice in the mail and the fraudulent return was processed, then you've got to contact the IRS Identity Theft Hotline. And I'm going to put that number on my website so you can see that. And you'll need to complete an affidavit as to the crime. And you'll also get that PIN number. That's not it, folks, because you're also going to have to contact the 3 credit bureaus to place a fraud alert on your accounts. The Federal Trade Commission indicates that once a fraud alert is placed on one of the bureau's records, then it would also be placed on the 2 others. But I recommend that you contact all 3 of them. That's Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And I will have that information on my website too, okay? So you want to at least put a fraud alert or lock your credit reports. Locking is different than freezing, though. So locking means that your credit report wouldn't be available unless you give permission. You may not wish to freeze your credit because then that's going to cause all kinds of inconveniences for you, when using your credit. This isn't easy stuff, it creates a problem. You've got to respond to it, and then you've got to change your habits for a while. I will have the FTC's identity theft information there for you on the website too, and also information as to the Social Security Administration. In the age of electronics, this is just another annoyance that we're going to have to pay attention to. But like I said, I wanted to make sure you knew, and that you knew what to do if you find yourself in this circumstance. So when we come back, I'm going to talk more about how you can protect yourself from being a target of tax scams or any other kind of identity theft. We'll be back right after this, and stick with me. And welcome back. This is Nancy Kogar, and you're listening to Boomer Time. So before the break, I said that I was going to talk to you about 6 ways you could protect yourself from being a victim of tax fraud. And we're going to do that. So here are the 6 ways that you can hopefully just keep yourself from becoming a victim of this kind of issue. You already know what you do if you do. But one of them is just really simple, and I got to tell you, I'm guilty. It's filing your tax return as soon as possible. I'm a very busy person, so I was working on that and didn't have it done, but then found out from the IRS that someone else had done it fraudulently. So luckily I stopped it. But one way to protect yourself from identity theft, from an identity thief rather, from claiming a return in your name, is to file one before they do. And as I mentioned, many victims of identity theft, me included, have found out that they've been scammed when they receive the IRS notification in the mail. So, simply put, get it done sooner than later. 2, get an IRS PIN. Now I've got one of those now, but you can go online and create one of those for you in advance, and it's just an extra way to protect yourself. You've got your social security number, but this will give you an IP PIN. So you'll use that to verify your identity when you file by paper or electronically. And it's good for 1 year, but once you got the account set up, it'll give you a new one every year. So I'll put the information on the website about how you can request one of those. But be aware that, those scammers want that PIN number too. So do not give that to anyone, even someone saying it's the IRS and put your PIN number in here if they send you an email. And be wary too of tax professionals. They'll need it when it comes time to file, but make sure you're using someone reputable, because sometimes, unfortunately, they're the ones committing the crimes from the research that I've seen. Not anybody I know, but I'm just telling you, use the right people. 3, monitor your credit and identity. So, you're able to get one free credit report every year. I know there's businesses out there that sell you the, monitoring and the credit reports and all that stuff, but you can get one for free every year. So I'll put that information on there too. And that's a good way. If you see something on there that's not right, clear it up, tell them. And there are letters available, sample letters, just need to print it out, send it to them. So I'm going to put all that for you right there on the website. Okay. 4, I alluded to this, but you can get identity theft protection. Some of these things will give you significant relief, both financially and in terms of recovery. If you're a victim, it can cover lawyers' fees, travel expenses, stolen fund reimbursement, all kinds of stuff. And it really just, also matters how quickly you respond. So a lot of times if you contact your bank or your credit card company, something like that, they will stop it and help you work through it. But these identity theft protection, they can be helpful too. Here's an obvious one, but remove your personal information from certain sketchy data broker sites. Remember I mentioned in my scam podcast that there's all these direct mail services? You can ask to be removed from those lists. Go ahead and do it. Why do you want to be on their list anyway? They're just sending you junk. That's there on the website. Okay? If you get off the list, that's less information that's there. And you can also do a personal data cleanup with your computer. Right? All those cookies and all those things. Let's clean that up. Yeah, that'll help you. And this is obvious, but I think it's worth mentioning. You can get that online protection software, ransomware attacks, all those kinds of things. Those are just all over the place. Something looks suspicious, don't open it, but people still get stuck. So that's 6 ways you can prevent yourself from becoming a victim. And if you are, don't lose heart. You just got to respond. So, in fact, I think the fact that I'm responding to this and telling you that this is how I'm dealing with it is hopefully helpful. So let me know if there's anything, other questions that you have. But like I said, I'm figured it better to put it all on the website for you. And you can find it there at nancykogar.com. When it comes to this kind of identity theft, here's some good news. This is considered white collar crimes. The majority of these people do get prosecuted, and they said over 69% of them do some prison time. So that's kind of nice to know that they are catching these people because, after all, they're using electronics so they can find out where they are. So that gives me a little kind of sense of justice there, right? And of course, we're dealing with Social Security numbers, so I think it's important to just kind of reiterate the importance of protecting your Social Security number. I mean, you can go out to a department store now and they'll ask you for it. It's just, you never know. So you have to be protective of that. And how might someone steal your Social Security number? Well, these are ways that they might steal other things, but I think it's important to just be aware of these things. Of course, if they steal your wallet or your purse, they can even steal your mail. That happens a lot now, unfortunately. So put a lock on your post box if you can. Those old-fashioned post boxes really are not very protective anymore. People can just drive on by and take mail out of your mailbox. That's not legal, but doesn't mean they won't do it, right? So just think about that. They may also steal your personal information if you provide it on an unsecure online site. They can also get it hacking into systems. We've seen that with insurance companies, breaches of data. Unfortunately, it's just part of the routine these days. Much simply, they can rummage through your trash, rummage through the trash of a business. We shred everything here, so that's how I protect against that. But they can, they'll dig through the trash to get your information. So don't throw away stuff in your trash like that. And unfortunately, they have inside sources, so they can pay someone who has your information to give them your information. I hate to think that, but it's people, right? And as I've already said, they could call you on the phone and pretend like they're your landlord or your government agency or whatever, but don't give information over the phone. If somebody calls me, even if they say it's my bank, I say, well, you called me. Why are you asking me who this is? I don't know who you are. You called me. So put it back on them. That's what I say. Identity theft is one of the fastest growing crimes in America. So a dishonest person who has your Social Security number can use it to get all kinds of information on you. They can pose as you. They can get your number. They can apply for credit. Of course, they don't pay those bills when they get that credit, so that's going to damage your credit. That's why you need to call those credit agencies. And you may not find out someone's using it until too late. So it can cause a lot of problems. And of course, that information is confidential. Supposed to be. The Social Security Administration doesn't give your number to anyone except authorized by law. So you should be careful about sharing your information, even when you're asked for it. Right? We just get asked for it all the time now. And I maybe think twice about that. There's some options too. I mean, you can, believe it or not, ask for a new Social Security number. I don't know how many people do that, but that would have to be an extreme, I think. But you can do it, and I can give you some information on how to do that, but hopefully you won't get to that point. So that's just a few additional kind of notations that I wanted to tell you about Social Security numbers, because it does occur to me that, we are asked for that quite often now. Even when you go to the doctor, they ask you for your Social Security number. So let's just be more aware of that. I know I am, and I know that this has made me more aware of where it is and who I'm giving it to. So have you had any questions that I didn't answer today? You can reach out to me. I always say that, but you can reach out to my website, nancykogar.com, and ask me the question. Maybe it'll make a good follow-up show. share your story. Your story might help somebody else. I appreciate those kinds of things. It makes a difference. And like I said, the information will be on the website, so should be some great resources there for you. I hope this has been helpful. I believe sharing information is the best way to respond to people that are doing things the wrong way. The truth will set you free, right? I'm sure I'll touch on more scams in the future. As I mentioned, we had a 2-part episode back with episodes 9 and 11 that were all about different kinds of scams that unfortunately target older people most of the time. And so I would really encourage you to go back and listen to those if you haven't listened to them before, or listen to them again, because there's lots of information in there. And if you've experienced this, I know it's easy to get defeated. But as you know, I'm a person of faith, and I believe that God is a God of justice, and He wants what's right. So unfortunately, we can't do much about sin and bad things in the world, but we can pray against it. And I believe that prayer is important and it empowers us. So I just want to end our time together today by just praying for people that have been victimized by either fraud or are vulnerable people that people are taking advantage of. I see a lot of this all the time just because of what I do in my practice. And it's a big part of why I want to get these resources and talk about these issues with you. Because I don't, if I can prevent some of this from happening, then I would feel like I've done what I'm supposed to do. So if you don't mind, I just want to pray for you today and just remind you that, bad things happen. And there are ways you can respond to it and fight it, and you have to respond. Be proactive. But let's remember that, like I said, let's remember that, in my opinion, there is a God out there that watches us, that knows us, that loves us, and wants what's right. And I'm just going to lift you up before Him today and just say that, Lord, just help people that are feeling downtrodden and victimized, that you would just help them and empower them to feel empowered by you and not to feel defeated. Encourage them in what they're doing. Give them energy, give them rest, and just help me to be an encourager. And we'll just give you all the glory in that. Amen. Thank you all so much for continuing to listen. And if you like the podcast, do me a favor, like it, and follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and share it with a friend. I'm trying to get the word out, so that matters. That matters if you share it with a friend, and I just thank you in advance for that. And if you want to get on our email list, reach out to me on the website. We've got a way to contact us right there, so you can get our monthly newsletter and other things that we send out. And it's a good newsletter. It always has really good information in it. So I hope you do that. And I do thank you for sticking with me and listening to me. And I hope that this is helpful to you. So we will see you next time, but I hope you have a great week. And just remember, Boomer Time is behind you. And we're going to continue to get the resources and help and information that you need to be empowered. So we'll see you next time.